Welcome to the Tom Sense Show. We are on the air right now with 5 big stories you need to hear. And remember, our chat is open on YouTube this very second. You can throw a question at me whenever it pops into your head during the broadcast, and if it makes sense and cuts through the noise, I will answer it right here in the middle of the news. Let us get straight into it. The Department of Justice just wrapped up a $400 million settlement with TikTok and its parent company ByteDance. Federal prosecutors went after them for violating the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. The government says TikTok knowingly harvested the personal data of kids under 13 without asking their parents, and when parents begged them to delete the accounts, TikTok just looked the other way. Under this deal, TikTok hands over $300 million right away. The remaining $100 million gets paid after an old 2019 consent decree against their original app, Musical.ly, gets thrown out. Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward Jr. called this a massive victory for online child safety. But privacy advocates are pointing out the obvious truth. A $400 million fine to a Chinese tech giant bringing in billions is just the cost of doing business. It is like fining a bank robber $50 and letting him keep the bag of cash. If you steal data from millions of American children, the answer is not a polite invoice from the federal government with a payment plan. ByteDance writes a check, keeps the algorithms running, and goes right back to harvesting our kids' attention spans. Until Washington gets the backbone to actually shut down foreign spyware on American phones, these settlements are just the federal government taking its cut. 7 countries on the eastern edge of the European Union have had enough of the bureaucrats in Brussels. Bulgaria, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia just sent a joint demand to European Commissioners Apostolos Tzitzikostas and Raffaello Fitto. They want cold, hard cash. These nations say their economies are taking a beating because they sit on the frontline border zone. They are dealing with constant drone incursions, airspace shutdowns, wiped out tourism bookings, and small businesses going under. So they are demanding a guaranteed carve-out from the European Union's massive upcoming €2 trillion budget. And of course, the rich Western European nations are already throwing a fit. The Western Bloc is pushing back hard because they do not want their special cohesion funds diverted to protect the eastern perimeter. This is globalism in a nutshell. When Brussels wants open borders and endless regulations, they demand total solidarity. But the second, the actual border nations need money to secure their airspace and save their local towns, the elites in Paris and Berlin suddenly want to check the receipts. Eastern Europe is learning what Donald Trump told NATO years ago. Yes, Shlomo Pearl 4946 in the YouTube chat, me again. I know it hurts to hear plain common sense every single day, but someone has to tell the truth about these globalist bureaucrats in Brussels while you keep tuning in. All right, moving on. If you expect a massive alliance to protect your home while Western bureaucrats sip wine and lecture you, you are going to end up holding an empty bag. They want you to absorb all the chaos, but do not dare ask for a dime to clean up the mess. Turning to a grim situation in Nigeria. Heavily armed bandits launched a terrifying overnight raid on a mosque during prayers in the north-central Niger state, kidnapping scores of worshippers. Police and local community leaders confirmed that gunmen swept into the area on motorcycles, completely surrounded the building while people were praying, and marched the congregants straight into the dense forest. Search and rescue teams, along with local volunteer vigilantes, have mobilized to track the kidnappers, but these armed gangs have turned mass abductions into a brutal, highly organized business model across rural Nigeria. Local leaders and opposition figures are furious, openly blasting the federal security agencies for leaving vulnerable religious communities completely defenseless. When citizens cannot even gather to pray inside a house of worship without being surrounded by heavily armed cartels, the fundamental contract between a government and its people has broken down entirely. A national government that cannot secure its own rural communities against gangs on motorbikes has completely failed its primary job. Czech President Petr Pavel hosted a bipartisan group of 4 United States members of Congress at Prague Castle this week. His main pitch was simple. He wants Washington to expand E-1 investor and treaty trader visas for Czech entrepreneurs. Pavel made the case that letting Czech tech founders and engineering minds into the United States would help grow transatlantic business and let European firms scale up inside our borders. The meeting also covered NATO defense spending and energy security. The Czechs want closer economic ties with America because Europe is looking shakier by the day. Our visiting lawmakers nodded along and said they would review the visa laws, even though changes in Congress face huge hurdles. Here is the bottom line for America First policy. We welcome foreign investment, and our allies should absolutely buy American energy and American defense hardware. But every foreign leader wants a special pipeline to the greatest market and consumer base on the planet. Looking over at the YouTube chat, Shlomi Pearl 4946 is asking if it is the right time to invest in oil. I am not your financial advisor, but look at the world around us. Every single ally wants American energy security right now. The plain truth is that modern industry runs on real, dependable fuel, not wishful thinking. Traditional American energy is not going anywhere. Good stuff. Now, where were we? European founders want to build their fortunes here because their own home continent has strangled innovation with endless red tape and green energy mandates. Expanding special visa programs should always put American workers and American innovators first. If European nations want to keep their best engineering talent at home, maybe they should try cutting their own taxes instead of asking the United States Congress to fix their brain drain. Over in Central Asia, voters in Kazakhstan went to the polls on Sunday for a snap parliamentary election. They were voting for all 145 seats in the newly created Kurultai, their brand new single-chamber legislature. This vote comes right after a major constitutional overhaul that completely scrapped their old two-house system to streamline the government. Under the new rules, any political party must win at least 5% of the popular vote to get a seat, and the whole rewrite conveniently reset the presidential term limits for President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev. Government officials are celebrating this as a bold modernization that expands democracy across the region. Meanwhile, opposition leaders and international observers are pointing out that this was an engineered power grab built to sideline independent voices and lock in executive power. It is an old political trick with a brand new coat of paint. Whenever a ruler says he is dissolving half the government just to make things run smoother for the people, you can bet his own power is the only thing running smoothly. Looking at the YouTube chat, Shlomi Pearl 4946 wants to know who wins a war between America and China. Nobody wins a war like that, Shlomi, but the United States will always come out on top if we have leadership that puts America first and does not blink. The plain truth everyone knows is that you do not win fights with weakness. You win them with strength so clear the other side never even tries it. Great one. Let's move on. If Washington politicians figured out they could reset their own term limits just by renaming the building, the United States Capitol would have a new sign on the door by tomorrow morning. That is the news this hour. Keep your heads up, stay sharp, and I will see you right back here next time on The Tom Sense Show.